Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. So there's obviously plenty that has been happening in the world of sport, and sometimes what can happen is that some important things might be happening in and around the time when you and I are catching up on some all-important sleep. Now, the world of sport is such that more often than not, it will not in fact sleep, and that's why we do this video every morning for you guys to catch up on a few important things that you may or may not have missed out on that have been taking place whilst we were getting some all-important rest. So without further ado, let's just get to it quickly. And one of the first things we have to be talking about is that there are now whispers coming around that there may be a few doubts over the test captaincy of one Rohit Sharma. However, those doubts don't necessarily come from the BCCI but from the man himself, because there is a belief within the BCCI that they aren't really going to replace him as test captain right now. But if he chooses to step away in the near future, then that's something that the board will understand and will therefore have to plan for. Now, it's worth noting that even when Rohit was appointed captain across formats, there was a belief that he would be a short-term option and that succession planning would need to start sooner rather than later. However, the disappointing results that Rohit has endured as captain, remember, under him India got knocked out of the T20 World Cup semis in rather tame fashion, and now they also ended up losing the World Test Championship final in rather tame fashion, has brought up a few question marks as to whether or not Rohit maybe needs to pick and choose as far as his formats are concerned, because he's definitely getting up there in age. And there would be a need for the BCCI to start planning or start succession planning sooner rather than later. Of course, there is also the fact that Rohit's form with the bat in tests in recent times hasn't necessarily always been the best. Yes, he had that very good 100 at Nagpur during the Border Gavaskar series, but there was, of course, few blips with the bat as well, whereas there have been other players who performed better during that time. And therefore, there are, let's just say, there's a little shadow of uncertainty that has been cast over this particular aspect as far as Indian cricket is concerned. Of course, another captain who in recent times has been plagued by rumours of retirement or moving on has been MS Dhoni as far as his Chennai Super Kings captaincy is concerned. Remember, throughout the 2023 edition of the IPL, there were talks that maybe Dhoni would announce his retirement and that maybe this was going to be his last season. And despite the fact that he's pretty much confirmed at this point that he's going to try and be back for the 2024 season, those rumors just don't seem to stop. And part of it really comes down to fan chatter, because this time around CSK have posted a tweet which was featured a video which basically had a montage of MS Dhoni, some of his best shots through this year, and a lot of people then started speculating as to whether or not Dhoni would indeed be retiring, or would he actually be announcing that soon enough. Now again, the reason there's so much speculation with Dhoni is because more often than not, you never really know until you do. There's no, let's say, impending talk. There are no rumors that swirl. But the rumors this time very much self-generated, but they still seem to be coming about. So despite the fact that Dhoni himself has actually clarified that he will look to come back come 2024, the rumors just don't really seem to stop. One thing that is not a rumor and that has pretty much been confirmed is that New Zealand will be without a key all-rounder come the ICC ODI World Cup later on this year, and that is because Michael Bracewell has been ruled out of the tournament with a hamstring injury. Now that is a bit of a blow for the New Zealanders for two good reasons. One, because New Zealand are not one of those teams who have unlimited squad depth, so any player being missing for them is a bit of a blow. But there's also the fact that they will have to be without skipper Kane Williamson as well. So Williamson had also previously been ruled out of the World Cup after picking up an injury in the opening match of the IPL 2023 season. That means New Zealand will now be without both Bracewell as well as Williamson, so they definitely need to scramble to find solutions sooner rather than later, or risk actually putting in an underwhelming showing come the 2023 ODI World Cup. Switching our focus now from the world of cricket to the world of football, and there has been plenty of chatter that we also had mentioned, we've done a video on, we also mentioned in yesterday's edition of the Morning Wrap, Kylian Mbappe, and that was because Mbappe had reportedly said that he won't be extending his contract beyond 2024, which meant that potentially PSG would have to sell him this season or lose him on a free. Now Mbappe has spoken up and denied those stories, except it's only been kind of, because if you look at, he took to Twitter to quote tweet the story, and he said that, look, the longer you let this go on, the bigger it becomes, but these are lies. I'm very happy at PSG and will be staying there next season. Does that mean that he's denying the fact that he's refused a contract extension? No. All he said is that he'll be there next season, which means that he'll refuse any opportunity, or he could refuse any opportunity of a sale this season, so that come the 24 calendar year, he can leave on a free. And of course, leaving on a free transfer is pretty beneficial for a player, because even though there's no transfer fee that exchange hands, it makes it easier for a player to leverage because they're available on a free, and it also means that they get a bigger signing on bonus from the club. So there are definitely advantages there, and Mbappe's denial is really a denial that isn't kind of a denial, because he said that he'll be here next year. But what about the season beyond that? He had signed a 3-year extension, with the third year of that extension being at his discretion. He has not confirmed that he will be activating that, so it does seem like even though he wants to stay at PSG for at least another year, the intention is to leave eventually. Now, speaking of players who have pretty much walked away or will be walking away from the game of football as well, you have Lionel Messi, who of course had completed football by winning the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, but the kind of performances he put in led to a lot of people actually hoping that he could continue on with the national team as long as possible. Of course, before the World Cup itself, Messi had confirmed that 2022 would be his last World Cup, and even though he's not retired from international football or football in general yet, it does seem a bit of a stretch to think that at the age of, say, 39, he would be playing the next World Cup. And speaking to media in China, where he and the Argentina team are, of course, there to play a friendly match, he once again reiterated that stance and said that no, it seems very unlikely that I'm going to be there playing the 2026 World Cup. It's just too far away, and I've said this before. So once again, he puts to rest any talk of him potentially being available to play for 2026. And in many ways, you can understand why. Yes, he doesn't want to retire immediately. He has said that his focus is to continue on with the Argentine team in the short term. He wants to be playing for Argentina as defending world champions, but expecting him to go, 4 more years seems very unlikely, especially considering that he's now also moved clubs and will be playing for Inter Miami. Don't forget, Inter Miami are in the MLS, which means, and MLS is pretty much a retirement home for a lot of top players. They'll go there, see out the last 2-3 years of their career, and then call it quits. So Messi is definitely in the twilight. Seems unlikely that he is going to be playing come the 2026 World Cup. He himself has confirmed as much. So there's that. No talks or no potential talk, let's say, of Messi playing in 2026, at least for a little while. Now, continuing in the world of football, and Celtic, the Scottish club, recently lost their manager Ange Postecoglou to Tottenham, because they had actually paid a release fee and brought in Postecoglou back to Tottenham, which means that Celtic are now looking for a new manager, and that new manager could be Brendan Rodgers, who of course was the man who Postecoglou had replaced at Glasgow. Now, it's an interesting turn of events, but Rodgers did have a lot of success at Celtic, and he is currently out of work, having been sacked by Leicester towards the fag end of the 2022-23 Premier League season. Whether or not this return works out remains to be seen, but Rodgers is definitely a talented manager, and he had some very good times at Celtic, so it definitely is at the very least worth a shout. Now, switching our focus from the world of football to sports beyond that, the Wrestling Federation of India has confirmed that the elections for their main office bearer post will be taking place come July 6th. Now, that's big news, especially when you consider the fact that the wrestlers' protests have been taking place for as long as they have. And one of the demands they made was that a fresh election be held, which pretty much does not include, let's say it's a revamp or a fresh start for the body. So that was one of the major demands, and what's more is that the election process will be a little bit on the fast track side, because if 6th is supposed to be the date that the elections are held, the results will be announced in only 2 or 3 days after that. So by 9th July, we could know who the new office bearers are of the WFI, and also the direction of what exactly the wrestlers' protest will become the future, because again, their protest isn't just about the WFI, but also the incumbent president, and ensuring that action is taken against him for a lot of things. Now, we'll end this news update with a bit of an update on Nick Kyrgios, who of course hasn't played tennis since the US Open of last year, and was in fact expected to be one of the favorites for the Australian Open this year, before of course he had to pull out due to injuries, injury issues. He had to take surgery. There were a lot of setbacks to his injury problems, but he made a return to competitive tennis recently in the Stuttgart Open, but lost that match. Of course, you'd remember that grass is considered by Kyrgios himself as probably his best surface, and he also made a pretty interesting fairy tale run of sorts to the final in 2022. Of course, he lost to Djokovic in 4 sets, but he did have a very good run, and many were expecting that he could pick up where he left off once he came back. Of course, the time that he's had out means it's probably unrealistic to expect him to hit the ground running, but a losing start hardly ideal. Here's hoping he can find his form before grass court season really gets underway. And that's it from us in this edition of the Morning Wrap. Thank you guys so much for joining us over here at Sports Today. If you enjoy our work, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and don't forget to download the SportsTech app as well. Plus, if you're already on the channel, you can check out some other videos that we've done, and stay tuned to Sports Today as we'll bring you all of the latest happenings from the world of sport. For now, from my side, goodbye.